Welcome back, agents, to another episode of Prime Tips. Hey, this time we're going back to look at Adventure Sync. They have finally released it. We've had time to kind of look at it, and we're going to give you our conclusions on it. Straight up, it's a good thing. So, what is Adventure Sync? It is a system that uses distance traveled by another program that reports that distance to Prime, and particularly in either your kinetic capsule and or your badges that keep track of how far you've walked. So to get it started, it's pretty easy. You got to go to setting. Well, you have to have the update. So if you look and it's not there, you still don't have the update. You can kind of tell the update that you need if you carefully watch whenever Prime starts up. There is a very short light ship screen that'll pop on and then go away. So if you're seeing that light ship screen on the preloading, you probably have the right version. So then you'd go into settings and just add a check mark to Adventure Sync, and you're ready to go as long as you have the software installed. There's no extra stuff to go along. Speaking to the software, it depends upon the phone that you're using. So if you're using an Apple phone, you have to have Apple Health installed and all set up. If it's a Google type phone or an Android, Google Fit has to be installed and set up and going. And that was the one that I did these tests with, was Google Fit, because I was using, or still am using, an Android phone. So those two programs are used to calculate the distance traveled. And it appears that the distance that those come up with is passed to Prime whenever Prime starts up. There's no input or syncing or importing or anything like that. It does it all automatically. I think, but I can't prove, that it passes that distance information also while Prime is running. Again, I didn't do a specific test to see if that was the case. So, we had done some tests before that dealt with distances being reported to Prime, specifically for the kinetic cap, because that was easy to keep track of. So I ran tests that are very similar to the tests that we ran back in episode 70. So if you want to go back and look at episode 70, you can see what you might expect if you're not using Adventure Sync. So in this test, we chose an area that there was good data cell service and good GPS service. It's the same path that I walked for the test in episode 70. And for this particular test, I had Google Fit running. Actually, it was on a paced walk, and Prime was not running. So when I looked at that track and measured it with maps, it reported that track as 2.14 kilometers. On the walk, when it was finished, Fit reported the distance as 2.28 kilometers. Prime recorded 2.3 kilometers. So very, very close to what you have. Again, it might even be a rounding error. It might have been something that was a little bit that was left over something previously, but very, very close. So when we ran that test in episode 70 with only using Prime, we were being shorted 10%. So you got 90% of the distance that you traveled accredited towards your kinetic capsule. With Sync running and Adventure Sync, the difference was a positive. So you got just 0.008%, not very much, but you got more than what Fit was reporting. Where that really comes into a factor, comes into play, is when you're in a different situation, when you're in a place that has poor or no cell data and fair to poor GPS data. And in episode 70, we found that that was a really bad situation if you're trying to pull in distances for your kinetic cap or your badges. So we ran these tests in pretty much the same area that we ran the test in episode 70. Maybe not exactly the same path, but it was all in the same area, because I know that this particular area, that the cell data is just terrible. As a matter of fact, for this test, to get the readings and everything for Prime, I had to use another device. So I have Verizon on my phone. I had to use a hotspot that has Sprint, and teaming those two together, I was able to get Prime to start and grab all the distances and things in Prime before I started my walk. So for this particular test, very similar to the other one, I had Fit running in the foreground with a paced walk. Prime was not running, and it was just sitting in my pocket. So I made that walk. When the walk was finished, Fit recorded 3.97 kilometers distance. Prime recorded 4.1 kilometers distance. Now, I didn't bother to do anything with Google Maps because it's such a path that's not straight. It'd be hard to do. And again, I understand there's so many variables that are involved here. It could be the time of day, the position of the geo satellites. It could be the canopy cover in the trees, which actually there was probably a little less because we did this previously 6 weeks ago, so there are probably a few more leaves on the tree. Solar flare activity, changes in the towers. There's all sorts of things, but this is about as close as we could get. What we found was pretty amazing. In that situation where you have poor to no cell data, and I know I had no cell data there. I never dropped off the GPS data. That the Adventure Sync recorded 96% better than simply using Prime without Adventure Sync. So when we did that test only using Prime, and we had Prime running in the foreground, it only captured 7% of the distance traveled and passed that on to the kinetic cap. With Sync running, it captured 103% of the Fit distance. So true, what we had recorded by Fit, or it would be Health, or if you're doing Apple, was actually little less than what's reported by Prime. So it looks like it's a positive error. It's giving you more distance for what you walk than what you would get without Adventure Sync running. And I have noticed that I have a lot more distance because Fit's running all the time. So I'm getting credit for the walking I do throughout the day. So whereas it might take me, I don't know, a week to have a kinetic cap go all the way through to the 8 kilometers, I now do it in a couple days. And again, I'm not walking a whole lot, but evidently enough. So, final conclusions. Well, pretty easy. Using ActiveSync is much better than the built-in system for figuring out your distance if you're going towards the kinetic capsule or the badges, and especially in those low signal areas. So, if you can do it, I would say turn on Adventure Sync. And if you're out walking, maybe I'll see you in the field sometime soon. See you later, agents.